Zoe Clark, a flashy woman, left her fiancé to be with a wealthy and articulate young man. But what shocked everyone the most was the fact that the young man was her fiancé's own son. They didn't know it, but only 5 years later life would teach Zoe a harsh and difficult lesson. She worked as a cashier at Walmart in the welcoming town of Remilton, California. In her spare time, she already spent all her money on regular visits to an esthetician, plastic surgeries, and never missed a day at the gym. Her appearance was impeccable, and that was always her top priority, even above her health. On weekends, she went to parties with men she knew and courted them at work. With all this, she was always very selective, having as the main criteria for choosing an attractive man appearance and an excellent financial situation. Despite always receiving a lot of attention from guys wherever she went, Zoe could never find the ideal partner. After all, everyone who showed interest in her always had at least one flaw that took away all the magic. This bothered the young woman of only 24 years old, and all her friends were already in serious relationships, even thinking about getting married, while she felt stuck in time, only attracting losers who would give her just one night of joy and leave the next morning. On a weekend like any other, Zoe visited one of her favorite clubs to have fun. Hey, did you hear that the club was sold and is now owned by a big businessman? They said it will undergo renovations and even become more expensive, said one of Zoe's friends who was accompanying the woman that night. Before she could even respond, she was interrupted by a memorable scene. At that moment, a middle-aged man, wearing an expensive suit, entered through the door of the establishment, catching everyone's attention. People seemed to fight to be the first to greet him. Being very solicitous, a man thanked all the attention and entered the place. Certainly, this is the new owner, Zoe thought to herself. The middle-aged man sat at the bar, and she, without giving fate a chance, told her friend that she wanted to go to the bathroom, but actually sat down next to the man. He kindly introduced himself and said his name was Gary Sharp. Being very pleasant, he offered to show all the club's facilities to the sweet woman, who quickly accepted. The two talked for a good few minutes, until Mr. Sharp said he needed to leave to deal with some issues and said goodbye affectionately, leaving his phone number for her. After that, life went on as usual. The young woman anxiously awaited the call that never came, and one day she was having coffee at a bustling city cafe when she felt someone approaching. She turned around and saw Mr. Sharp, who asked if there was a free seat next to her. He pulled up a chair and sat down. This time, Harry was dressed like an ordinary person, without his expensive suit or luxurious shoes, even showing a little belly that was almost imperceptible before. This made Zoe almost not recognize him. Usually, she wouldn't go out or even talk to men like this, but strangely she admired his company. His sweet and gentle manner made him very easy to talk to. Moreover, his intelligence was evident, being able to talk about any topic without any difficulty. With that, Zoe accepted Mr. Sharp's invitation to dinner at a restaurant next week. That same day, the woman went to a clothing store and bought one of the most expensive and posh dresses, as well as a beautiful pair of shoes and new makeup. At dinner, she arrived first and was eager for the man to come soon. The two had a pleasant evening, sharing funny stories and telling facts about their own lives. After a few more meetings like these, Zoe and Mr. Sharp quickly became a couple. In a few weeks of relationship, she saw in him a great potential, as well as the generosity she admired so much. Even though his appearance was not very attractive, she still felt that he was the man she had been looking for and that he would always be able to provide for the family they formed. The young woman had come to the conclusion that Gary Sharp was a simple man, who preferred to work and not spend all his money on expensive cars or other luxurious nonsense. The two didn't talk much about money, and Zoe didn't want to push the issue with the gentleman. She only made assumptions about what he did with all his wealth. All of this made her very happy, and she already knew she would say so to him if he proposed. However, the woman didn't expect that future events would completely change her perception of who Gere really was. One night after work, Zoe went to meet her friend at the club. Since it was a Tuesday, there weren't many people there, and the ones who were there were familiar faces to the woman, except for one man. He was tall, attractive, and his hair was perfectly styled. He wore designer clothes and confidently walked around the establishment, giving instructions to the employees and sometimes telling them exactly what to do. "Hey, is that him, you know?" asked the son to her loyal friend, who was always well informed about the latest town gossip. "What do you mean? You don't know who that is?" "Connor, the new owner I told you about," the friend replied, confusion evident on Zoe's face from miles away. If that was the new owner of the club, what was her boyfriend Gary? Her friend didn't know about Zoe's secret relationship with an older man. She preferred to keep it secret until everything worked out, and it wouldn't be now that she would reveal it, remaining quiet for the rest of the night. She had to talk about all her discomfort and suspicion until she got home. When she was finally at her residence, it was as if her destiny was playing with the young woman. Because at that moment, she received a call from Gary. "I was wondering if you would like to have dinner with me tomorrow. I have a big surprise for you, and I think you'll like it." This time on the phone, Zoe was still confused, but she thought the dinner would be a great opportunity to finally make everything clear. When she arrived at the establishment, she quickly noticed Gary, who had reserved a beautiful table and was dressed better than usual. She sat down and was about to start speaking when she was interrupted by the man. "Sorry, but I hope you don't mind. I invited my son to dinner with us tonight. It will be very special for me if you both join," said the gentleman. And when the son turned to the side, there was Connor, walking towards the table. "I guess you're late because you were killing time with some woman, aren't you?" Gary asked. Connor, a young man who just laughed, greeted Zoe and sat down at the table. As this scene unfolded, she finally understood completely the situation she had gotten herself into. Ultimately, Gary wasn't the owner of the club. It now made sense that he never talked about business or dressed in expensive clothes. He was just an ordinary middle-aged man who had been a university professor his whole life and now lived on his retirement. His son, Connor, on the other hand, was the true entrepreneur and owner of the place. Throughout the night, he shared some of his story and how he had graduated from college and opened his first profitable business a few years earlier, and now was expanding into other areas of the city with the purchase of the club. While still trying to assimilate everything she had discovered that night, Zoe was incredulous to find out that the surprises were just beginning. After everyone finished dinner as expected, Gary knelt down and proposed to the woman, delivering an emotional speech detailing how she was special to him. Zoe was astonished. She really didn't expect that, but with all the pressure of the moment and immense nervousness, she simply said yes, leaving Gary extremely happy. After that day, and knowing that the true entrepreneur in the family was Connor, the woman started visiting the club more frequently when the young man was there. Being a savvy guy, he noticed that she was indeed very attractive and began to take an interest in her whenever he could, spending time showing her around the club and how the business worked, charming Zoe. On a starry night, Connor shared with her his desire to open a business near the sea, away from the bustling city and his club. He wanted to expand his business even further and explore other cultures, wanting roots and living abroad for some time. Zoe didn't hesitate and promptly replied that one of her biggest dreams was to live somewhere else. The medicament offering to leave along with young Connor understood the not-so-discreet hint and invited him to go along, without caring about his own father. All that conversation turned everything upside down in Gary's life, because from that day on, an affair started between Connor and Zoe. The woman didn't lie to her fiancé for long and soon decided to come clean with him, saying she was in love with his son and therefore couldn't marry him. Without any remorse, she took off the ring and returned it to Gary, saying they were very different and would never have a future together. The man later recounted that, as incredible as it might seem, this was not a surprise to him, but he expressed his indignation with a phrase said to Zoe, "I expected this from Connor, as I know the son I have, but I didn't expect it from you. Perhaps, in the end, you really are just another one and not the person I imagined you to be." "Goodbye," said Gary as he closed the door not only of his house, but also of his heart. 5 years have passed, and her marriage to Connor couldn't have been better, or at least that's what she thought. They lived in several warm countries in Europe, experiencing the best that life has to offer. The young couple's businesses brought in good profits, making money not a concern for them. But this life of tenderness ended like water in a desert. The son caught her boyfriend in bed with an older woman, even less beautiful than she was. The truth is, she suspected the businessman's allure, but had never caught the scene until now. However, a man didn't seem to care upon being discovered. He even introduced the two women as if it were completely normal. Someone who used and became furious with the situation, he said without the slightest ceremony, "Look, I think we've had our fun. I had a great time with you, and I believe you did too, but it's over. It's time for each of us to go our own way. If you want, I can schedule your return flight for tomorrow," the man replied without any remorse. Zoe's face turned pale instantly. She couldn't believe she would be dismissed so easily like that. With tears in her eyes, she said she hoped he would take more serious steps for a 5-year relationship and not give her a sudden prize. However, upon hearing that, Connor just laughed in the woman's face. "Something serious? Get real, Zoe. These hysterical woman tears don't work with me. If you wanted something serious like marriage, you should have stayed with my father and not run away with me. Now, pack up your things and go to the hotel reception before I have to call security," the man vented, already angry and disdainful in his gaze. After a brief moment of silence, she simply threw her things into a suitcase, caught the plane the next day, and returned to where it all started. 6 months passed, and Harry was in a relationship with another woman. For the first time in years, he felt happy again. During Sunday lunch, he received a call from an unidentified number, and when he heard who it was on the other end of the line, he was shocked. A police officer asked if he was Connor's father, and Gary confirmed. He explained that the young man's rapid financial rise caught the attention of the Los Angeles police, and a few months later an investigation was opened. The conclusion was that Connor had committed money laundering and active corruption, and that's why he had been arrested that morning. Furthermore, all his properties would go up for auction to pay his debts to the state. When asked by Gary, the officer clarified that his son was fine in a solitary cell, but he could await trial on bail if his father paid $22,000. Gary remained silent for a few seconds, then after brief reflection, he replied loudly and clearly that he would not pay the bail. The officer explained that as soon as he got the money, he could take him out at any time. The elderly man just took a deep breath and responded confidently, "My dear, I've worked hard over the years, and today I have my savings, approximately twice that amount, saved. And as for the money, I know that because my son is a first-time offender and because of the college education I paid for him, he is now in a special cell, being treated better than many people out on bail. If my son erred, he will pay for his mistakes, because if he was man enough to commit them, he will also have to be man enough to own up to them. Who knows, in a few weeks, I might change my mind and pay the bail, but until then, I'll let him reflect on all his mistakes, legal and otherwise. Not relevant now, Mr. Officer," said Gary, hanging up the phone and returning to his Sunday lunch. If you liked this video, please leave a like, and this other story that's appearing on the screen now will probably move you too. Enjoy and see you in the next video.